My guys, send me a printout of the birth certificate. Have you taken a look, and what do you think?
I'm really proud that I was able to get him to do something that he should have done a long time ago.
Well, have you taken...
He should have done that a long time ago.
Sir, have you taken a look at the birth certificate?
No, I haven't.
Do you want to take a look at it?
I'll take a look.
Okay, thank you.
Where's my pen?
That was Donald Trump afraid to even look at the proof of his idiocy when an NBC News producer tried to show it to him. Today, former Bush speechwriter David Frum posed the most important question about what Trumpism has done to the Republican Party. He wrote at frumforum.com, any last lingering doubts that maybe, perhaps, a pregnant Stanley Ann Dunham in the summer of 1961 boarded a propeller plane from Honolulu to Los Angeles, then from Los Angeles to New York City, then from New York City to Gander, then from Gander to London, then from London to Nairobi, and then repeated the trip backward a few weeks later, all so that her baby could acquire Kenyan nationality. Those doubts are definitively squelched, as they should have been 3 years ago. Now, the more haunting question: how did this poisonous and not very subtly racist allegation get such a grip on our conservative movement and our Republican Party? Joining me now, MSNBC contributor and Washington Post columnist Jonathan Capehart, and MSNBC political analyst Jonathan Alter, also the author of The Promise, President Obama, Year One. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me tonight. I want to show you both a bit more of what President Obama said this morning. Let's listen to this.
We do not have time for this kind of silliness. We got better stuff to do. I've got better stuff to do. We got big problems to solve, and I'm confident we can solve them, but we're going to have to focus on them, not on this.
Jonathan Capehart, did the White House believe they had to do this today? They had to get the president out there, produce the birth certificate, in order to get the focus back on the big problems?
Well, there were two things. Yes, the White House felt that it was important to do this to move on to more serious subjects, but also the president was just plain and simple frustrated by the fact that this distraction, as he called it, was crowding out more serious issues, but also just what it was doing to him. I mean, the idea that the president of the United States is being hounded by people who, even when they brought it up in 2008, were considered fringe, are now the mainstream of the Republican Party. And I feel comfortable saying that when the latest poll shows that about 45% of people who identified themselves as Republican said they questioned whether the President of the United States was indeed an American.
Jonathan Alter, to that point that Jonathan just made about the 45%, at some point were the polls in effect telling the White House, this controversy, to the extent that it exists out there, is good for us. It's crazy. People recognize it's crazy. It's often a corner of our politics where the crazy people are. Did something happen in the polls to make the White House think, no, this has moved. It's moved out of the crazy corner, and it's moving toward us in a way that we have to stop?
No, I don't actually think that's what happened. I think this has always been advantageous for the president because it marginalizes the Republican Party. And, you know, if he was really just looking out for his own political self-interest, he wouldn't have done what he did today. But I think, as Jonathan pointed out, this is a guy who hates what he calls petty distractions. You might recall during the Pennsylvania primary in 2008, he felt that Hillary Clinton had gotten involved in a series of distractions that were getting them off the serious issue. So in some ways, you know, they waited for a while to see who would eat this garbage, and it turned out more and more Republicans were willing to do it and marginalize themselves. But at a certain point, when you're talking about the debt limit, you know, the possible default of the United States, he really wanted to refocus the political argument. But what's fascinating to me is what you were talking about earlier, that, you know, I live up in the New York area, and we've known for years that Donald Trump was a bully and a fool. Mm-hmm. But we've only recently learned that he's also a racist, and now we know that he's a dupe, a sap, and, you know, willing to believe the most ridiculous hoax stories. He's been, you know, fooled. And his counterattack today has kind of distracted attention by kind of ramping up the racism. He's distracting attention from the fact that he got taken by some very, very flimsy conspiracy stories.
Jonathan Capehart, talk to us about the racial component of this controversy and how you think that may have ultimately landed on Barack Obama. Here he is bringing up a family. He's got 2 black children and his very legitimacy is being publicly attacked. The very essence of who he is being questioned and publicly attacked. Was he standing up for more than just himself today?
Well, yes. To be quite honest, a piece that I'm working on for tomorrow is trying to delve into the fact, and I've seen it on Twitter as well from other people, African Americans in particular, who are wounded by what happened today, wounded by Donald Trump's press conference, and wounded by seeing the President of the United States, who happens to be African American, who has achieved the greatest job in the world, has had the best education, to this day still having his qualifications questioned by someone who doesn't even measure up. For a lot of African Americans, and for myself in particular, it's really hard in 2011 to know that you can work hard, play by the rules, achieve great things, and I'm talking about the President of the United States, and still have people look at you as less than, look at you as not deserving, looking at you as unqualified, despite the fact that there's evidence aplenty that you are indeed qualified, that you are indeed legitimate, that you are indeed right to lead.
Jonathan, Jonathan Capehart, just to stay with this as we go out, there's the challenge of his admissibility to these elite universities, but when he gets to Harvard Law School, the most elite spot he ends up in the educational ladder, he excels within the student body, and he gets to the top of the student body. He proves himself as a student, and what admissions committees are trying to do is simply predict who's going to work out best here. And you can have some people with higher scores who turn out not to perform as well as people with lower scores. It seems to me that the Harvard Law School admissions committee bet exactly right on Barack Obama, that he was going to excel. And you're left here today with someone who got to be president of the Harvard Law Review and is being challenged on his academic achievement, and it leaves me feeling,
So
what could the man possibly have done in his life to get beyond a challenge of his academic achievement?
Well, you know, Lawrence, this is something that plenty of African Americans have to put up with every day. They just don't put up with it on the global scale that President Obama has to put up with it. You know, I went to Carleton College, and I remember in Minnesota, and I remember when my SAT scores came back, and I almost cried because my SAT scores were so incredibly low. I thought for sure I wasn't going to go to college, even though my coursework, my grades were A's, B pluses, but my SAT scores, those very important results, weren't good enough, I thought. But Carleton, as Harvard took a chance on President Obama, Carleton took a chance on me, and because of that, I get to talk to you now. But if admissions offices and other people don't take those chances and listen to idiots like Donald Trump, then we'll be poorer as a nation.
Well, guys, I'm sorry we don't have more time for this. We got to go. I'll tell you right now, Harvard College took a chance on my SAT scores too. Jonathan
They did on
Capehart,
Obama's. His were high.
I know.
So it's ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous.
All right, we're going to find out more about that later. Jonathan Alter, Jonathan Capehart, thank you both very much for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Coming up, after striking out on the president's birth certificate, Donald Trump is now attacking Barack Obama's education credentials. Is he really trying to undermine the academic achievements of all African Americans? Would he go that far?